Pecha Kucha 141, Star Trek, the John Byrne collection. John Byrne's a name I recognise from the 1970s. I was very surprised to see that he wrote and drew this, but it was in 2015. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I like Star Trek well enough, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I did a daily sketch. I think I'm averaging one a week. Shouldn't really be called daily, should it? But you hope and you dream. Dalsim, more difficult than it could be because his body is contorted to some extent, and I tend to normalize proportions when I draw, but you can probably still tell it's him. So I've started work on a new collaborative comic on page 2, based on a little rough idea that I got through WhatsApp from the Mystic Moore. It's a very strange place to start in the middle, especially when you're trying to continue things blind. The premise is pretty simple. It's two Guilty Gear characters having a fight. This is Slayer, vampire, dandy man, very overpowered character, has truly ridiculous hair. I've drawn him in the past. It's not an easy thing to do for a guy who is ostensibly just wearing a suit. He has horse legs, though, trust me, it's crazy. And Johnny, the coolest character in the world ever. Some bare-chested trench coat wearing EI samurai pirate, voiced by Norio Wakamoto. Any of you know who that is or you don't, but that makes him like literally cool squared. Super hard to use, maybe the best character in the game. They have a fight, so I'm just scribbling some stuff together, trying to figure out where I get it to come from, what happens, and where I get it to go in only one page. I would have probably spread it over 2. It's not what I'd call complicated, but it was definitely fun to do. Slayer comes in with a Mark Bappa punch from the previous page. He gets countered by a Mist Finer, which is a EI slash from Johnny. He misses. Slayer's behind him, sees a book that was on the floor before, blows smoke in his face, takes the books and leaves. I was almost not even going to colour it because I enjoyed it in so much in black and white. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Star Trek John Byrne collection is like 20 fucking comics. It's like a love story to the 60s Star Trek. Surprising it's written half a decade later. It's got some casual sexism and the kind of stuff that you would expect, but there's a lot of deep stuff in there as well. It starts with like this whole Romulan intrigue where the Emperor, the guy in blue, has a new fleet and he's trying to start a war with the Starfleet, which is all the human dudes, the Federation, and the stoic dude on the left is like this cool general dude. What nobody knows is the Emperor is being manipulated by the Klingons, and yes, it's the 60s Klingons without their crazy predator heads or whatever, so they're more like Mongols or something, I don't know, back when it was okay to make the bad guys brown all the time. But that got really interesting, and then it cut to this weird thing that's like a 60s spy show, with this dude who's paid by aliens to kind of prevent these crazy conspiracy things, and he has a bubbly miniskirt wearing sidekick. She's endearing, and she's not as stupid as it would be if this was written in the 60s. There's a lot of writing in this that's jargon heavy, but it doesn't feel oppressive. So I give John Byrne credit for both really clear artwork that's easy to follow and cohesive narratives. The entire thing is character driven, and I really enjoy that. All of these characters, I don't know who they are, but they go on these self-contained adventures, which are worth reading. So I'd pick this up if I read comics as comics. Here they've uncovered a dastardly plan to make super soldiers and clone them. So it's like a whole Aryan thing. And the way that this story is resolved is they all get teleported off planet, which comes up later in the book. So then it cuts back to the Romulan intrigue where this kid has had his dad die in the maiden launch of a new ship. He ends up becoming the new emperor because the Klingons convinced the current emperor to marry the widow, who is that guy's mother. But then she has the guy assassinated because she holds the emperor responsible for the death of her husband, and she knows that he's in bed with the Klingons. Then she blows herself up, having ensured her son has now taken over control of the Romulan Empire. But he doesn't know all of this stuff, so then he tries to wage war on the Federation until he is made aware of the facts later in the book. And then it cuts to a third separate story about this brunette chick who works on the Enterprise before it's crewed. She comes up several times in the book at several points in her life. She starts as an ensign, becomes like second mate, and then becomes admiral or something. She encounters the clones from the 60s spy drama thing because they got teleported to a planet somewhere else in the universe, which brings Mr. Seven and his blonde sidekick back. There's a strange kind of overlapping of all of the stories, and then when it cuts back to the Romulans again, you see some old Klingons and some new Klingons from the next generation with the head things going on. I don't know the lore of Klingons and what that's about, but I'm sure there is one. I'm sure it's very interesting to explain the differences between makeup from the 60s show and the 90s show. And then the book's also got time to throw Dr. McCoy in with little blue ladies in miniskirts. And every time there's a black dude in this book, they're like a super optimistic, really talented, super cool 60s black dude. I love it. I love it all, but it finds a way to be dated but charming in its tweeness. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing, but then it's got a lot of things I like that I can't even talk about because it's too much. It's a massive, massive collection. Sad Clown of the Week. Undertaker versus Goldberg had a money match in Saudi Arabia as part of a 10-year deal between the WWE and the Saudi government. It was a disaster, not from start to finish, but yeah, it went downhill. Well, yeah, no, it wasn't a disaster for The Undertaker from start to finish, but Goldberg can't wrestle. And I didn't realize that until someone pointed it out to me, but he can't wrestle. They're both too old. It was way too hot in Saudi Arabia. They weren't prepared. They fucked the whole thing up. Undertaker, at least, is man enough to take it on the chin. Goldberg maybe not so much. I was just listening to Solomonster Sound Off talking about the whole pay-per-view. I laughed out loud quite a lot when he got to this. This is the whole reason I listened to the thing. It's not that you wish old wrestlers to retire like you wish them not well, but sometimes you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. So yeah, that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 141, and I'll see you next time.